Good evening. I know it's been a few days since I've done this last, so I just wanted to kind of do a nice brush up on how things really were going to be. I'm going to be heading back to New Orleans for about 2 weeks, and so I may or may not be doing these, but I am going to be doing some readings actually in the city, so if you happen to be there, well, contact me and look me up and you shall find me. So, let's see what we have today. Alright, Alchemy, otherwise known as the Temperance card. What this represents is actually, well, things coming to fruition, but finally actually obtaining balance, and actually, well, even understanding that this type of balance was very necessary for the process. A lot of things on that other side are finally starting to kind of tear through that veil, and there is actually a sense right there where there is a sense of wholeness and completion. A lot of those questions are going to finally be answered, especially now that the retrograde is finally, well, gone direct. We still have like another week and a half of the retro shade, but it is a lot easier to deal with. It's pretty much what I would call kind of like a hangover, but it is really understanding and having a clearer perspective and shifting all of this, not to let the emotions go completely out of balance and also out of whack, but to finally actually, well, find that beautiful word, acceptance. And that's really where you'll end up getting your peace out of all of that. What we see also with the Eight of Swords talks about not letting those things get into your head. It is the interference card for a reason. And when you see something like interference like that, it's actually a lot of confusion because we feel very conflicted. When people are saying negative things to us, we might project it into a different way, trying not to react to a situation. When really, it's not that you need to react and actually give them what they want, but there needs to be a reaction instead of no action. Because what you end up understanding when you don't react is you're saying that it is okay, and you can't let anybody take you out of your peace. It's a lot easier said than done to sit here and say, oh yeah, don't let people get into your peace, don't let people get into your head, because you are a human. Even if you think that you're an incarnation, or even if you are an incarnation of a higher being, right now you are a human going through these experiences, which sometimes, well, has to actually come to a level of acceptance that a lot of us can't get. I know I get into my head some points, and sometimes I even think like, oh well, I deserve this and I deserve that. The only way we can really do that is by going out and saying those things that we don't want to say sometimes, that need to be said, so therefore a new level of understanding happens. And that's why I even inserted some of the things that I actually go through too into this, because it is one where nobody's going to ever always feel on point all the time. We all struggle, we all go through emotions, we all actually, well, even feel insecure, and that's another thing. It's unlearning that by actually at the same time admitting those feelings. How can you ever feel positive all the time? No one can. And it is one where there's not always going to be a solution to a problem for a while, unless you sit in your emotions and really actually deal with it as it truly is. What you're looking at also with this card as well, what we see with the Prince of Wands reversed, as it is with Hare Krishna, that is actually an area right there where you find you're dancing to your own beat. You're finding praise and having faith in yourself, and that's what that inversion really is when it's reversed. It means to focus on the self at this point. Only actually try to focus on what you do have power in. And where you're powerless, well, understand that there's a reason for that too. And there's actually senses right there where so many of us are so hard on ourselves, especially within the spiritual communities, because a lot of people have this misconception that spiritual means positive, bright, fluffy, or even when you're negative, you have to be toxically positive. That's not even possible. And that's one of those things where we can be very hard on ourselves and very critical when we feel like we have let ourselves down, when really you didn't let anybody down. This is one where sometimes you have to give yourself the pat on the back for some of the things that you didn't do. Did you react in a way that's going to get you in trouble, right? Well, if you did, Well, think about that, learn from that lesson. But if your answer is no to that, see, you already made progress. You didn't handle this negativity the way that you actually would have before. And you actually thought about that. And that's why we sometimes have to look at it like that, because this is one where we don't always realize the impact that we're really making until after the fact. You see how Bridget of Ireland is in this one? What this is actually representing is the Princess of Cups. That is one of those times where you are really not only making your mark and seeing your influence, but that's why it is one where you're not replaceable. You are very valuable. You do actually matter. The things that you think, even if somebody else doesn't agree with it, it is something that you actually are adding to that table. And that's one of those things where you are important. And that's why you have to look at it like that too. The King of Stones is one of my other favorites, because no matter how many people are grabbing at you and trying to actually make you pull you down, here you are. You're grounded. You're standing on your feet. And nobody is taking this situation from you either. You're finding that peace. You know who you are at that point. And nobody can define that for you. You know, we get a lot of people who like to actually try to misrepresent who we are. They like to make us feel bad for being ourselves. And the thing is, that's actually about them. That has nothing to do with you. That is their own personal problem, and when they're talking down to you, judging, ridiculing, what they're really doing is confessing. And really pay attention to all of that. That person out there that you have holding on to a resentment with is out there living their best life, because hurt people are hurting people, but you're not going to actually take them down by actually repeating what they did. In fact, when you start to react in a hateful way, what you're doing is confirming what they're saying about you. So that's why we have to really see the bigger picture here with the Kali Ma card. The Kali Ma is known as the Queen of Wands, and that's why it represents from some destruction comes rebirth and construction. When you look at it really like that in a cycle of what healing really is, it isn't always necessarily going to be some painless thing. It is like really pulling swords out of us, pulling wounds, and actually, well, putting some antiseptic on those wounds, and it burns when you're trying to clean it out. And that's what you also have to focus on. When you start to finally see it, it actually ends up getting better for us. So, understand that, because you actually are enough, and you're worth that. I'm going to leave it on this one with the Ace of Cups, because that's where the fulfillment really does come in. And that's really one of those where change has to be necessary. And that's what this is really talking about on a more personal level. And that's why I really actually think that we can benefit from things like this, because sometimes I can speak on a general aspect. Sometimes it actually is, well, to the point, knowing yourself at this point and seeing yourself in the mirror. Are you the example of what you actually wanted to be? Are you actually giving the message that you've been trying to convey? And really, where do you go from here? Thank you.